It's hot off the press. The Gartner Magic Quadrant for Enterprise Backup and Recovery for 2024 is available. Today, Sabaya Sundaram and myself from the team at Haiku are going to provide you a bit of a breakdown of the results, the changes in the industry, and our perspective on the whole thing. My name is Andy Fernandez. I am on the product team here at Haiku, and I'm joined by Sabaya. Sabaya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Andy. Sabaya Sundaram. I run products for Haiku, based out of Boston, and very glad to talk with you guys.
So Sabaya, you have deep experience. You've talked to customers of all sizes for years. Tell us a little bit about how you see customers using Gartner.
That's a great question, Andy. So Gartner, as most of you who are listening to this are very well familiar, is the big name in the analyst industry. They are probably the gorilla in the analyst industry, right? Why do people use them? When we talk to customers, one of the reasons they actually go to Gartner, they look at their reports and things like that, is because there are so many choices out in the industry today. They want an industry-wise to give them guidance on what to look for. That's the primary reason. The secondary reason they end up using is that when they talk to their management, the management wants to know, is it just you, the person who's recommending it, are doing it, or are there other people in the industry looking at that particular? What are they saying? And that's why Gartner, again, comes in very, very handy for customers. It's a proof point. It's just not personal evaluation. It's other people in the industry telling.
So Sabaya, Gartner reviews all sorts of technologies, all sorts of platforms and industries and for different personas. Now, whether it's CRM, whether it's DevOps, but why is Gartner's perspective and Gartner's opinion in data protection so important? Why is the decision of picking a data protection platform so important for customers?
It's a great question, Andy. If you think about it, right? I mean, in the data protection world, there are lots of technologies claiming data protection. And if you just purely write out the list of all the names which claim data protection or backup and recovery, disaster recovery, data migration, you will easily come to 400 plus. As a customer, sometimes it's mind-boggling to imagine I'm going to compare 400 different technologies to choose something. That's why customers look to people like Gartner to give them guidance on where to focus their research. That's where it comes into picture. That's why this really helps. It boils down the 400 into a small set of things which the customer can focus and then make a choice. Especially this is great for customers in the mid-market to enterprise segment because that's the primary segment which actually has a variety of technologies, variety of needs, different complexities, and they are looking for a solution which will help them across the board.
You know, Sabaya, that's very interesting because one of the things that I found too is this year, there's going to be over $200 billion spent on security, Sabaya. Over $200 billion spent on cybersecurity platforms and tooling and services. Yet we're continuing to see these attacks still happen, still encrypt data, still disrupt organizations. So more than ever, backup is at the center. Recovery is really the last line of defense, but you have to make sure that you pick a data protection platform and a service and a company that you can trust. And that's why leveraging Gartner Magic Quadrant is so valuable for data protection. But here's the thing, the industry has changed so dramatically. Even from the last decade, we do not recognize so many changes in cloud infrastructure, in SaaS applications, in the world of serverless. Things have changed so much since it was just mainframes. And of course, backups have to change. But Sabaya, let's talk about a little bit about how has the industry evolved in certain spaces. We'll start at the beginning, virtualization. And then how has Gartner's evaluation of that evolved specific to data protection? Sabaya, let's talk first virtualization.
Totally. So if you look at it, let me take a broader step, Andy, just to see the evolution. As all of us have looked at the Gartner Magic Quadrant for many years, and we try to actually respond to them because they run through a very rigorous process in this exercise to actually come up with their results. When they look at it, right, they look at a variety of things. If you look at how they have started evaluating 5 years ago or things like that, tape used to be a very critical decision-making factor. We used to wonder, because we were a much younger company at that time, why is tape critical? Because at that time, that was what still a lot of enterprise customers said is critical. But as they've evolved, right now, that's not the decision-making criteria. And so the same way, as you said, it used to be tape and physical servers, and then tape and from virtual servers, and then going on one by one, right? Now Gartner has started seeing the SaaS evolution happen, right? They started going to the cloud, and now from the cloud, they started seeing the SaaS evolution. So the way we think of is that is, as we see it, and you and I have talked about this thing as a company, we talk about it all the time. Customers have evolved, and Gartner's decision-making criteria also has been evolving along with the customer. It used to be purely on-prem per public cloud, a little bit of public cloud, on-prem per public cloud, per a little bit of SaaS, on-prem per public cloud, per a lot of SaaS. Gartner, as a company, as an analyst firm, doesn't go after, they do talk about a lot of the trends and things like that that are there, but their primary focus is what are currently customers using, and that they try to do the mainstream business, and that's the primary thing they're trying to focus in this report.
No, that's very insightful, Sabai, and you've seen this through and through across every single evolution in the world of data center, in the world of cloud infrastructure. But if you think about every new application that's being deployed, Sabai, it's no longer something on-prem, it's a cloud-native application. That has substantial impact on how you protect those applications, on how you back them up, on what you're even recovering, but also on how Gartner says, well, who is a good backup vendor for this specifically? Should our evaluation of this person's ability to back up tape impact their ability to back up SaaS and cloud-native applications that are so mission critical today? But Sabaya, another evolution that we've seen over the years, especially in the last 5 years, is the discussion around security within data protection. From your perspective, from our conversations with customers, Sabaya, what's the role of data protection in security?
It's a very good question, Andy. I mean, as most of our listeners actually probably are hearing it too. The word data protection means different thing to different people, as all of us would know, right? If you think of it as the same word data protection used by security team, it's also used by what we call the data protection team, which is the team which is responsible for backing up your data, recovering your data, helping you with disaster recovery, business continuity, things like that. So two different dimensions to this particular one. So it's a spectrum there. But when we talk about data protection, what this report is trying to do is specifically the second half of it, which is how could customers protect their data? Meaning, how could you make sure you have a good copy of your data, recover to a good point in time, have business continuity, disaster recovery, things like that. That's the primary focus of this report, right? What happens is that in the industry, there are companies, people who will try to muddy the waters. There is very clear, within the IT organization, take every IT organization, there's a clear security team, and there is a clear infrastructure team, a storage team, or SaaS team. Why do they do that? Security is a completely independent charter. Typically, networking security or security is an independent charter. That is like guarding the gates, right? There are people who have responsibility for that. That is something there. The problem is that I think there are some backup vendors who pretend to be security vendors and they claim they can do end-to-end. While you know what, data protection itself is a huge task. And that's why you have people focus on that. Same thing with security, it's a huge task. Don't try to mix and match. That's what we recommend to customers. Try to use the best of breed for each of these solutions because there are huge problems on each one of them. And that's something we do. That said, I think there is a continuum here. Like in any security people talk about, any ransomware, prevent things like that we talk about, right? There's a prevention, detection, and remediation, right? Prevention is the best thing, right? Like in our personal lives, people say prevention is better than cure. True, right? You're better off to stop it. That said, bad actors are smart. They keep constantly evolving. As much as you try, you will still get sick once in a while. Same thing happens in business. Once in a while, somebody will attack you. So you got to be able to prevent it, right? And detect it, right? When you actually try to do detection, that is a responsibility, the security vendor and the backup vendor, because you want to make sure when the detection happens, there are multiple people trying to do detection. That's why you want to do both. Remediation is the task of data protection, and that is something we should do 100% the best, and we should never let you down, right? That's why it's a spectrum, but then what we recommend to customers is that try to do the best solution for remediation because that's the last resort. When everything else fails, this is the thing which has to get you back, and make sure it's there, and try to get the second line of detection, and that's what the data protection vendor should do.
You know, Sabaya, that was an excellent breakdown. It actually brought up the point where, you know, when we look at backup today, and you'll see this in the report as well, the protection of SaaS applications, of cloud services, is extremely underserved in the industry. So the focus really is, let's make sure that we can protect and help remediate across any workload versus muddying the waters with other use cases. There are going to be best of breed solutions from a security perspective, but in order to be best of breed within data protection, within remediation, you have to be able to not only back up, but recover much more than just your traditional on-prem workloads, whether physical, virtual, or even additional cloud infrastructure. There's so many other workloads that need to be protected. That's a critical focus. And with that, Sabaya, for those who don't know who Haiku is, or maybe remember us from a certain point in time, give me a 2-minute history lesson on Haiku, Sabaya. You've been here the longest, much longer than I have. Give us the history lesson.
I would love to actually share that thing, Andy. So if you think about Haiku, we have been in the industry a little about 7 years, a little more than 7 years now. The key thing for us is that we started with on-prem because that's the largest workload customers actually had at the time when we started. We did all of on-prem. We did Nutanix, VMware, physical, the entire data center. We started seeing customers going to cloud. Google reached out to us and said, hey, we would like you to protect our data which is on Google. So we built a solution for Google. Then we built Azure. Then we'll build AWS. That was our journey. Because we, at the end of the day, we try to focus ourselves as a customer-focused company. And we look at, I allow the Wayne Gretzky's thing, go where the puck is going, not where it is today, right? That's the focus, again, we are trying to do. And we are starting to see people, not just on-prem, not just all the public clouds, they're on SaaS, tremendous amount. That's when we try to cover the entire breadth of data estate which the customer actually has. That's why our company's motto is data anywhere, protected everywhere.
Sabaya, I know you've lived in Boston for a long time when you're quoting hockey players, so that I love that. But Sabaya, one of the things that we talk about all the time is there's a fundamental shift in how you're supposed to protect cloud applications versus on-prem. When we think about on-prem, the fundamentals are I need to make sure that I can take snapshots and have backups of my virtual machines, of the database, and of the storage as well. But cloud is a different beast. How has Haiku evolved to actually truly and natively protect cloud workloads and all of the services inside of it?
That's an excellent question. I'll tell you, it's also a very leading question. The reason is that if you think about it, most people, when they move from on-prem to the cloud, the general assumption is that, oh, cloud is nothing but just on-prem provided by somebody else. While physically that is true, it's instead of you managing infrastructure is there. But practically from a business perspective, what's the advantage? It's the agility cloud provides, right? The ability to spin up a brand new machine, the application, the database, the service in minutes, and then do it. Why am I saying that? If you think about traditional, when we are a data protection vendor, and many of you are looking at data protection solutions and options all the time, the key thing which you probably want to look at, there are a lot of people who try to say, oh, you can run your on-prem backup on the cloud and it's good enough, it'll do it. While it's there, but in the on-prem world, you didn't have, why did you go to the cloud? You went to the cloud because of agility. So you want a solution which actually can survive the speed at which you operate on the cloud. It's built for the cloud. That's one of the reasons, Andy, which, as you would probably say, we actually decided when we moved to the cloud, we could have taken our on-prem and made it run. We didn't do that way. We said, when you are on the cloud, you got to be cloud native, right? We built it on the cloud for the cloud, right? And made it truly available in the cloud, in the marketplaces. So it is truly a native service of the cloud. The way I'll always tell people is like this electricity thing, turn it on when you want, turn it off if you don't like. I hope you never turn it off. But that is something, that's the capability we want you to actually have. That's what I think is very critical for customers to think of.
Well said. Sabaya, somebody leading product here at Haiku, what are the things that yourself and Haiku is hyper-focused on solving for customers today?
There are three things I would also tell people in that particular one. There are lots of options for customers, right? I mean, there is all, as I mentioned, there are like 400 different people claiming to be data protection. There are three things which I tell customers. One is proliferation of data. There's so many places there is data today, right? On an average company has what, 217 SaaS, just SaaS applications. In addition, they have all the public cloud and they have on-prem infrastructure. Proliferation data. So we want to be able to protect the entire data set for customer. It's a Herculean task, but that's what we are driving towards. That's the first one. The second one I'll tell people is data protection has been complex and we want to simplify it. And that's our entire motto. That's a big part. So data anywhere, protected anywhere, keep it simple. The third thing, which is very, very important for customers, not for us alone, but for customers, is to make sure the data, the protected data, is always in their control. What do I mean by that? Anytime data is the crown jewel today, right? A lot of people think assets. It's not a physical asset, it's your data, which is your company's asset. And you got to make sure you don't leave it under the control of a third party. You should actually have access to that one. You should always have control of that particular thing. And we as a company always fundamentally believe that, and we believe it should be your control.
Well said, Sabaya. One of the things that I love about our time here and what we're doing at Haiku is it's very easy to do additional use cases around security. But what's very hard is to truly solve the challenge of modern data protection in the world of cloud and SaaS. And everything that we're doing is around being the best of breed solution for any workload that you're running anywhere, whether it's on-prem, whether it's public cloud, whether it's serverless, whether it's a business SaaS application. You need and deserve remediation and recovery across all of those. And that is a hyper focus of what we're doing at Haiku. But Sabaya, let's talk brass tacks. Let's talk about the Magic Quadrant for enterprise and backup and recovery for 2024. And let's go back in time a little bit. When you started at Haiku, when we were mentioned by Gartner, where were we? Where are we today?
I think I'm very, very happy to report that Haiku is in the visionary part of the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We are very proud to be that because the way, as I mentioned earlier, our goal is to be the leading thought provider in this particular case, right? We want to go where you are as a customer are headed towards. Not about where it is today, it's about where customers are and where they are headed towards. That's why we are very, very happy to be in the Gartner Magic Quadrant and in the visionary part of the quadrant. That's very, very essential, and we are very happy. This is the third year in a row we have been in the visionary quadrant. And I'll tell you, the amazing amount of changes which have happened in 3 years, and every year we have delivered compelling innovation, and that's why Gartner recognizes that, and we are very, very happy to be there.
So Sabaya, you mentioned so many changes over the years. A lot can happen in a year. In the world of cloud, in the world of SaaS, a lot can happen in a year. Let's talk a little bit about what Haiku has done in the last year. From when Gartner evaluated us last year to today, let's talk about some of the changes and a lot of the innovation. And it's been an incredible, wild ride of a year. But let's talk at the foundation, where it all started, Sabaya. What are some of the things that we've done in the last year around data center, around protecting on-premise workloads?
Let's start there, Andy. That's a good point. So let's start with the foundation, which is every customer still has, 98% of customers still have. It's the on-prem infrastructure. In the world of on-prem, there have been transformations happening all the time. People used to be physical, then they went virtual. VMware was the big dog. Nutanix came in, made their entire data center infrastructure simple with their HCI concept. VMware caught up, that's their vSAN. They added that. And then now Microsoft with their Azure Stack HCI is expanding it quite a bit. In addition to all this, customers actually have their entire unstructured data, which is all around things like Isilon and NetApp and so on. The great thing for customers is that in the last year, we actually not just expanded our Nutanix capabilities, which we are the best in class for that particular one. In addition, we have also expanded with Dell, Isilon, and all the capabilities we do deliver. We don't use the NDMP, just so that you've been very clear to people. NDMP is like 25 years old. We try to use the native APIs of all these platforms to make it simple. In addition to that, we have also started supporting Azure Stack HCI. That's just an evolution in the last 12 months. It is tremendous there. It is just not there, Andy, as you clearly would say that. It starts with the on-prem. But from on-prem, obviously, we provided disaster recovery for the customer for on-prem to have a great disaster recovery on the cloud. In addition, many of these on-prem customers also run their VMware or provide their Nutanix, they're running on the clouds. And we were the first one to support many of them, and we continue to do that. That's the evolution of the cloud. Now, within the cloud, right, and as well as with the SaaS, we are very happy. Last year, we had just introduced our cloud when actually Gartner started the Magic Quadrant process. This year, we have our cloud in full action. We have over 70 different integrations part of our cloud in a single platform for a customer to be able to manage their public cloud infrastructure and their SaaS infrastructure and all of their infrastructure service, database service, platform as service, so on, is phenomenal, right? That is our cloud. That allows customers a breadth of capability. This includes all the cloud native applications, which is included either running in Kubernetes or you're using a database service like a Cloud SQL or RDS and so on. And also not just that, also protecting all the critical SaaS applications customers have, like all their Atlassian portfolio, all the GitLab, the GitHub, the identity management like Okta and Entra ID. That's all that. Last but not the least, I should probably also mention in the spectrum, the big problem customers actually had was the breadth of data estate. They just did not have a control of what they didn't have a clear visibility on what they had. That's where our graph, the ability for them to discover their entire data estate and visualize it, we made it simple. And that is something we're very proud of just in the last 12 months. There's a lot more to it. Very happy if somebody's interested to talk more.
Subhaya, that is to sit back and look at all of that in a year. You should be incredibly proud of the Haiku product team, of the engineering team, and what they've done. But every single thing that was released, every innovation, every new capability, every new workload is because it was geared to solve customer problems, leading with the vision, leading to become a best of breed solution versus trying to place in this quadrant. But let's talk a little bit about the SaaS component, Subhaya. When we read through and see Gartner's evaluation of SaaS, they name the usual suspects. They name Microsoft 365 and Salesforce. But you and I both, and everybody in the audience knows, there are thousands of SaaS applications. Subhaya, in the future, how do you see Gartner evolving their evaluation of backup for much more than just 365 and Salesforce?
It's an excellent point you bring up, Andy. As I mentioned earlier, if you look at Gartner, they're trying to do the mainstream business, right? And they look at saying, they do look at the trends. They're very smart about it. And that's when they look at the vision aspect of it. Because they say, you know what, guys, it's just not about where you are, but the customers, like many of you who are listening, are thought leaders. You guys are thinking ahead of where you want to be. It's not about where you are. That's why the way I think of is that you have to look at if you look at, you were talking about earlier about Gartner's evolution thing. SaaS was not at all a focus for them. Last year, they started adding here. This year, they started adding Salesforce and M365. And they said, oh, other SaaS. They've started including the interest. As we go forward, this becomes, we predict, if you were, as we were asking, as we expect it to be, Gartner will starting to see a lot more. And I think that's where I think people will start seeing that why we were a thought leader and why we continue to be a thought leader in this particular space.
No, that's an incredible insight, Subhaya. Now, Subhaya, pretend I'm an IT leader, CIO. I'm making decisions on my infrastructure. I have still a good on-prem infrastructure. I've moved to cloud. I'm using SaaS applications. I'm trying to get a handle there. Shouldn't I just choose a leader? Or how should I evaluate a leader versus a visionary? What factors do I use to make a decision here?
That's an excellent question. Let's look at the broader portfolio. Customers, the way I tell customers this way, which is very fair. There are a few other vendors in the leaders quadrant, and you probably might be wondering, why don't I just go with the easy one? It's something there. What customers have to probably think of is that, are they going to remain the way they are today, or are they going to evolve, right? This is a question you have to question yourself in that particular one. Because many of the technologies which are there in the leaders quadrant were built like 15 years is the youngest, I think, and most of them are 20 plus years old. It's not wrong. It's absolutely a good technology, solid ones, good. The question I think which people have to think of is that, where are they headed and what do they really want to do? That's where I think of is that if you're thinking in terms of agility, mobility, for example, don't get stuck on one particular cloud, have the ability to move between clouds. Want to make sure you don't use one service. You are already using many services and you will continue to use many services. Do you have needs like DORA and NIST compliance? Are you a company which actually has data across multiple different countries? Things like that, you have to evaluate yourself. Are you going to continue to look at speed of innovation? Are you going to think in terms of AI? Are you going to think? If you think in terms of future, then you want to choose somebody who's innovating quite a bit. And that's where I think a visionary thing comes into picture. It's just not about visionary. You got to look at the company's track record of being able to deliver on the innovation. That's what companies have to do. It's just not about preaching about Haiku. I think that's where if I were on your shoes, from when I talk to IT leaders who are thought leaders, that's what I hear from them. Why did they choose it? They say, guys, we are just not static. We want to innovate. And that's why if you look at it, for example, Cloud Software Group or like when Broadcom and so on, they look at people who are innovating and they look at saying, we got to deliver on that. And that's why they chose Haiku. And we're very happy for that.
Sabaya, we were just talking about our State of SaaS Resilience report. And in that report, across hundreds of IT leaders, we actually found that the number one threat, the number one target, the number one source of successful attacks was SaaS applications, right? So if your organization is using cloud, if your organization requires SaaS applications for your business, for DevOps, for engineering, for ITSM, for sales, for finance, you really have to include that in your assessment for remediation to understand, do I have a data protection platform? Do I have a vendor that I can trust with all of my data? Not just a segment of it, but all of it. That's a critical consideration when you're making that decision across what am I trusting as my last line of defense in case of an attack, in case of a corruption, in case of an incident. Now, Sabaya, there's so much noise in the world. There are so many things to do, especially as an IT leader. What do you recommend that they do now? With this report coming out, with how the industry is changing so quickly, what are a couple of things that you would recommend to every single IT leader now who has to make a decision?
Let me actually add to what you were saying, Andy. One of the key things which I tell people is that the first thing, let's go to what customers should be doing, right? Or what we would recommend you doing actually in this particular case. The key thing is that first, try to get an inventory of what services you are using. People might say, I actually know already that stuff. If you think about, take your AWS bill or Google bill, and look at all the different SaaS services. These are publicly, these are your known SaaS, known services you're using, right? Then look at the number of services. You are using quite a lot of services. Why do I ask you to do that? If one of the services gets corrupted, deleted, accidentally, did you lose the configuration data? These are small amount of data, but they are so critical in your infrastructure. So if you strongly encourage people to lose, please get an inventory of all your SaaS, PaaS, DBaaS, IaaS, and your internal IT infrastructure. First, get an inventory of that. How? There are lots of tools available. There are different security vendors selling tools. With Haiku, we provide you a free tool called rGraph. Just use it. Again, there's no cost to it for you, just for you to get your view of what you actually have. That's the first thing, just to get to know what you actually have. That's there. It allows you to understand your risk profile. Then the next thing I probably will always encourage customers to do is please protect your most critical assets. I always tell people the rule of 3. The first thing is that please guard your keys to the kingdom. People say, what do you mean? It's your identity. That's your key things. Please do protect that. That's the first part, right? When I say identity, it's your Oktas, your Entra IDs, things like that. Please protect that. Second thing is please protect your IP, because today's world, IP is more important than many other things. So please protect the IP. That's the second one, which is GitLab, GitHub, Jira, Confluence, it could be a web server. Wherever you have your information, please protect that. The last thing I'll tell you, not last thing, at least the third thing in this particular case, is your customer data. It's very, very essential you keep your customers' data safe. It could be in your object store, it could be in your files, it could be in your CRM, wherever it is, please protect it. Because at the end of the day, customers pay our bills. You got to keep them happy and keep them safe. That's there. That's something I will start with. There's a lot more to do. If you guys want any thoughts from us, not sales, thought from us, we'll be very happy to consult with you at no charge, things like that. Reach out to us. And we'd be very happy to always love talking with customers.